I had
Good evening, everyone.
yes, good evening. Dino, I had to get you worked into the intro just a little bit. That was one of my favorite clips we ever did. That was from the first time you did Dueling Dealers, where you did
Yeah, and
the.
you were worried that I was going to put up the wrong finger,
I
right?
I definitely was. So yeah, we're Dino, you approached me about doing a Heritage signature recap because we couldn't get the gang all together back before OEX, and so you
Too
had it.
busy. Everyone's flying around. I think Albert was in Europe, and uh, Nick had a few bunch of things, family things to tend to, and but we wanted to keep the streak alive, and it's always informative, I guess, to talk as a community about these big auctions that come up, and we thought we'd do something really different today to make it to take a different look at how we look at the auction recap. So.
Yep, and we've got that
Glad
for
to
you
be
tonight
here.
for sure. Yeah, and I think what you've come up with is fun, and we'll be interactive. I think people will be able to throw their comments in on some of the pieces here, and it's always good to take a fresh look at things too. So we've
Well,
got.
just as background, so we do a lot of these recaps where we talk about the pieces and the prices that they've realized, and then we compare against, oh, it sold for this much 2 years ago, or 5 years ago it was this amount, and what we're going to do today is really look at pairs of pieces, two lots that sold around the same value, sometimes identical, but that have one thing in common, and invite the audience and Bill and I to comment on kind of the relative value of each, but also what drives pricing for one or the other. So it's, again, you look at the show header, I think it was a perfect one. You showed the Ross piece of the Captain Marvel and Superman going at it. That's like two pieces, A and B, for each round. And we can talk about what would be relative differences between the two, and invite folks in the gallery to talk about their preferences. You can say, I prefer 2A, or I prefer 2B, or this is why one thing was well priced, etc. So it should be interesting. We have 12 pairs to talk about, so to try it with a new format, and Bill and I will kind of comment on our own perspective on not only the pieces but the prices, and what it means to the hobby, what it means in terms of the trends for those of you who are looking for that artist, or looking for those type of pieces, or in general wanting to get assessment of where the market is headed. There's no better time than the last auction, and that's what we're going to talk about today, and what it means for the hobby, and how it's going. So
That's very true. And I did look at the overall numbers, as we always talk about that. And ironically, it was around 6.5 million, and I believe that was they were at 6.4, 6.5 in the prior two signature auctions too. So these things have kind of stabilized themselves a bit there. No $500,000 or $1 million artwork to really skew things. So 3 consecutive signature auctions from them at that.
But pretty healthy in terms of an overall result. I think a lot of people, if you kept up with the bidding, you'll see that very extended bidding on the live auctions. The platinum sessions, I think, had a lot more robust bidding than maybe the prior two. So that was a good sign. That was a great sign. And I think there was a number of surprises where pieces went for substantially more than what people expected, and some, in Nick's words, some diamonds in the rough that did surface out that we can talk about. But first, before I do, I just wanted to say I missed everyone at WAX. I hear congratulations, Bill and Kaiser and the team. You guys have put together a wonderful show. I've been kind of catching up on videos and snippets and reports from some of the friends who attended, and I know everyone had a great time, and I wish I could have been there. But there's always OAX too, so I've already made my plans to make sure I can join there. But congratulations, that sounded like just such a fun show, and Herculean effort to get it done. But wow, what a result! And I think we're all thankful that you put that together.
Oh, well, it was a lot of fun, and we missed you, Dino. I mean, you were somebody who needed, we really wanted to see on the floor. I mean, you're such a presence on the channel over the last 4 years, and a lot of what we did during the show, I feel, is kind of an extension of the things that we've been doing on the live streams for so long. It was fun having several of the amateur dueling dealers over in the collector corner. All of that, and then just the social aspect of it that we've really kind of cultivated here on the channel, and getting to see everybody hang out and meet each other for the first time. And
Definitely.
yeah, Marvel #1 fan. He's a lot bigger than I thought, you know.
Tom, yeah.
So,
That's
you know, you just know, you know, that was really the fun part for me, was getting to meet him.
See, the tough thing for me, I would always call people. It'd be hard not to call them by their avatar name, right? So, or their cast name, cast gallery name. It's like, yeah, it's Comic Art Boston, whatever, you know. So like hard to revert to normal mortal names, right?
And we gave everybody enough room on the on their badge to, you know, write their handle and their name if they wanted to. And
what was the Marcus Captain America? How did that come about?
Well, it's kind of, yeah, it's funny. I mean, well, that was over, you know, of course, Team Oreo, Mikhail, Aranga, and Jason had, you know, they knew that Marcus had to be there. And the funny thing is I actually was talking to Marcus in early January or maybe even late December, and I asked him if it would be okay if I brought a cardboard cutout of him, because, you know, I figured it was going to be my surprise. And he told me, I think somebody else might be doing something, so don't worry about that. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this, you know, so I blew the surprise for myself, but I was going to do the same thing. I wanted to have Marcus with us during the reception, you know, just taking pictures of him all over the place. But so he was in the, he was right there with Team Oreo representing, and a lot of people
so funny. When I saw that, I just busted a gut laughing.
No, it was good. And we had, you know, we had the Crotch Goblin hanging up in one of the booths, and people got to take their pictures with that. The galleries were a big hit. All those things. I mean, it was just really, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was everything we could have ever hoped for and more. And next year, you know, like I was telling you in the green room, hopefully, you know, we'll have the more opportunity to kind of socialize, because that was the one thing. I think I got to say hi to pretty much everybody, but I didn't get to talk at length, even with the exhibitors. It was funny when the show was all over. I never walked up to Will's booth, you know, and I talked to Kazra, and he's like, yeah, the only reason he did was because he was the one pushing the water and drink cart.
Right.
So he got to hand out drinks to everybody, so he got to say hi to everybody. So, you know, it's the funny thing is that, you know, it was a 7-hour a day show, and even though it was 2 days, you know, and we wanted it that only 7 hours, because we didn't want it to feel like a con where it's 9 or 10 hours and you're really beat when it's all over. But 7 hours is not a lot of time. It goes by pretty quick when you're.
But it seemed like it is now displaced, if not, displaced Heroes as kind of the con to meet the art community, art collector community, and it probably has a better environment for just chatting and talking to people. I mean, Heroes, we had that bar session, which was which is drinking and sharing toasts with other collectors, and then the convention itself was so large that trying to find the other art collectors, you're kind of hoping to meet up with them. Whereas at OAX, they were all around.
I liked, and I don't remember where I heard the comment, but somebody said that, you know, when I was waiting in line, I knew I was waiting in line with other comic art collectors, and you know, you don't mind striking up a conversation. When you're at a regular show, you know, you don't know who you're standing next to. Well, you know, is it another art collector or is it somebody else? And you know, just a fan that wants a signature. So that was kind of nice, you know, when you realize that everybody in the hall is a friend one way or another, or could be. It makes approaching people and talking to them so much easier. So I don't think I wouldn't say it supplants Heroes, or, you know, it's Heroes has its own allure, but it gives you the opportunity to kind of you know, socialize in an environment that you know, that you're not going to get at any show at all, unless you're going to Comic Art Con or Bashar shows on the West Coast. So yeah. So so why don't we dive into this new format, Dino?
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoy this, and again, make it interactive and ask questions and let us know how you feel about the pieces. But when we start out with the slide one. So the first pair at 156,000 were two blue chip titles, one from the 60s and one from the 80s. In fact, these were, you know, these will always be treasured runs. One was a Steve Ditko Amazing Spider-Man page with Scorpion, Good Battle page, and the other was a Frank Miller Daredevil 181 page from the very famous Death of Elektra issue. What is interesting to me is, beside the 156,000, is that on one hand you had a very representative Spidey page with him in 1, 2, 3, 4 panels, and kind of rule of thumb, the way I think about it is ASM, 100,000 as an entry level, and you almost get 10 to 15,000 per Spidey panel. So that pricing to me seemed about right. The Miller Daredevil, on the other hand, while it was just truly a special run, it did not have Daredevil on the page. So it tells me that the strength or the scarcity of the Miller DD run still is very, very strong. And I think if you look back at the last 5 auctions, perhaps you have a lot of representations from the Ditko ASM, but very few core Miller Daredevil pages or splashes, really, from the 158 all the way to 182 that have come to market. So the demand there is really strong. So this is a neat pair, both at 156,000. I mean, obviously a good split for collectors, but two headline pieces that really performed well.
Yeah, I agree. And I, like a lot of people, I was surprised at the Miller Daredevil piece too. No, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, pedigree piece, but without having Daredevil on it, it was a shocking price, but it's a great page that hasn't been on the market in a while. It's funny. I actually had somebody in the U.S. actually had 2 Daredevil Miller pages for sale at one point. Got him in some kind of as a comic book dealer, approached me about it and was curious, where to sell them or how. And I gave him some advice, and I even said that I might be able to help him because through the channel or whatever, that we might be able to make it happen. And so both these pages I have never seen on the market before. And one was I don't recall the issue, but it was when Bullseye was fighting Daredevil in the movie theater. And I told him, that page by itself is a 6-figure page, and he opted to end up selling the pages for like 110 for both of them.
Yeah, no surprise there.
Right, and I did everything I could to convince him. I'm like, that page is special, and they still do it. So that's why when you look at this, I mean, I think it's the scarcity on it, but people, Bullseye is your signature villain on the Miller Daredevil run. But it still was a surprising page, but it's got everything you want in the Miller page with with all the sound effects. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. Just doesn't have Daredevil on it.
Yeah, and I agree, Bill. I think this is why this performed at this level. It's got that the cinematic panel, the full horizontal panels that Miller made famous, and then the blam. I think that's one of his signature sound effects that you see throughout the run. But I think the dark backgrounds, the whole intensity of the page, really sets as a fantastic example from the run. But now Bullseye did appear from 161 all the way throughout until 181. In fact, 181 to 191. I mean, it was a full. So there's no scarcity of Bullseye pages, but this also shows you that Daredevil 181 is a well-loved, almost like the X-Men 137 and the similar key issues that do present a premium for art from those beloved issues. So with all that, I mean, it's no surprise to me that it hit this level even without Daredevil.
Right, and I didn't even think about it as being a 181 page, so that adds a lot of extra value to it as well.
But for me as a collector, I will say I'd probably choose the Ditko. I've owned a few Miller DD pages. I've never owned a Ditko Spidey, and that one, I think, with the battle of a major villain, it's got some great fight panels in there. It would be one to put in the collection and really be happy.
Right. I would probably go with the Ditko Spidey as well. I mean, just because Ditko Spidey has always been the marquee artwork on the market. I mean, since I was a collector, right? Ditko Spidey was always the most expensive and hard to get. And it just always felt unobtainable. And so if I could have either one, I would go with that and then hope to one day get another chance at a Miller Daredevil. And I was watching the chat. There were several people. I think it was very split on what direction most people would go. But yeah, that's that was a fun place for us to start this thing out with. So let's take a look at slide 2. 2 comparable sales again.
Yeah, so around 66,000 for a Chris Bacalo Bachalo, Death Time of Your Life promo illustration. This was a classic image that was produced before the Time of Your Life miniseries, and then 60,000 for the Kelly Jones, Malcolm Jones Sandman 23 page, which shows Morpheus and Lucifer in a very poignant dialogue that was representative of the Netflix series. I think here you can see both of them performed well. The demand for Sandman art remains very strong, but I think there are certain pockets that seem to gather a lot of attention and certainly some bidding frenzies. So I think Death of late has the scarcity of her art on the original Sandman series, but also Time of Your Life is one that I've always wanted to try to find a page from that. Very few pages do come to market. Chris Bachalo's work there is almost his signature work outside of the X-Men. And then on the Sandman page, while you don't have any large images of many characters, you do have Death and you do have Lucifer, and those are two characters that were kind of very central to the storyline. And I think there's been a number of artists from Dringenberg through to Bachalo did one issue, by the way, issue 12, and then it went through to Jones and Kelly Jones, and then later on some others. But like, I think this is a matter of taste, and for those, anytime a Sandman piece does come up, you have those collectors that love either that storyline, the dollhouse, or the Sandman, the hell scene, or the artist. They really have to step up to try to get those pages, and this one really performed well for a Sandman page of this vintage. I think both of them were seen as top of market in terms of historical pages, but again, nothing of these have really come up at least in past two auctions. There's been a Sandman from Dringenberg and from Bachalo. Kelly Jones had 2 pages in this auction. This was the top performer of the two.
Yeah,
Sandman versus Death.
Right, exactly. And it's a world that I've only read a bit of Sandman, not enough to certainly make myself an expert at it. And I don't follow the market very well, but I had seen enough comments online that I felt like the Sandman page was going to get a lot of interest. I saw James mention the size on the piece by Chris. Was it small? Was it really
7 by 10.5? I think it's small, but I think the image itself is just you can't get better than that. I mean, that's a very strong image by an artist who elevated that Time of Your Life series, and is very well collected.
So in this case, size does not matter at all. But
yeah, and we've seen the promo page. The promo Sandman went 2 years ago. That was the Sandman promo ad. It went for 90, and people were just aghast at it going for that high. But look at Death coming out at 66 for a later promo from the Time of Your Life series. That to me is very surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably just, not being a reader of either, I'd probably go with the piece by Chris, just because it's a very recognizable image, even for those of us who didn't follow the storylines very well. But either one would be nice to own.
I would actually prefer I love both of them. I would take the Jones Sandman page. I'll tell you, for one reason, it's so hard for Sandman to get a one and done piece because there's so many different varieties, so many different artists. I think the fact that this has Death, has Morpheus Death, Morpheus Dream and Lucifer. I love the dialogue that they have. You can't read it here, but the dialogue they have on the page, and I just think that those issues were very, very just wonderful reading. I would be waiting. I would still be waiting for a Time of Your Life page from the actual published group, but I would love to. Between the two, I'd probably take home Sandman page, but to each his own.
Yes, exactly. And so, and we seem pretty split on this one, although I think most people preferred the interior page if we had an actual count going.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
But market for Sandman continues to be strong.
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay, so the third pair is a pair of Jim Lee, Scott Williams art. So both of them teamed up, and one of the all-time great team-ups between a penciler and inker. On the left, on 3A, you have Batman 615 page, a splash from the Hush storyline, which was probably the peak of the Lee Williams Batman run. And on the right, you have Lee Williams illustration, actually unpublished, Wolverine versus in Colossus fastball special. I think it's oversized, but you have basically claws out Wolverine attacking a Sentinel. Fastball special really evokes those very beloved themes from the X-Men series, and they both, 42,000 versus 41,000. I mean, both in the same price range for Jim Lee and Scott Williams. I thought it was interesting to see this and compare the two. Shows you the strength of Lee on Jim Lee on X-Men, which I think is illustrative of that piece going very, very high. Yeah, but also, the Hush series is one that you continue to find really strong prices and demand for. Not only just the ones with the Batman in it, but there's ones with Catwoman, and then the ones that Hush appears, which are very few. Those are very high demand as well. So yeah, interesting to see an artist team, two representative works, one DC, one Marvel.
Right. And, like James Siegel mentioned, it's hard, but he's going to go with A because it's a published piece. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, as an X-Men fan, I'd still probably go with the X-Men page, but I feel like, it's a bit more of a gamble, even, at that price point. I mean, if it's unpublished, but it would be a great trophy to have. If it's oversized, it's going to look fantastic. And, but yeah, that's the thing we as collectors wrestle with a lot, right? If it's published,
right,
it feels like you have a better feeling of a piece holding its value longer over time. But in this case, X-Men, Jim Lee, even if it's unpublished, the idea of getting a finished piece like that, fastball special and the Sentinels, I'd probably go with the X-Men piece.
Yeah, and I put this up for a reason, and that is, yes, you mentioned market value, but also think about if you took, I mean, between the two, I would take the X-Men piece as well. Think about if you never got to resell it, if you had to buy one and put it on your wall and see it for 25 years. So it really doesn't matter what the price appreciation is going to be, or what the future demand or generational impact of moving from today's generation of collectors to, then 25 years from now with their nostalgia. If you just needed an example of Lee Williams, and you just had something to look at and hold and just admire for the next 25 years, obviously you can't go wrong with a Hush page. That's going to always retain its value and have a wonderful, check the box in our hobby. But I mean, look at the Wolverine attacking the Sentinel. That's something that will always bring a smile, at least to my face, and I'm sure to many others in the community.
No, I'm with you there. The idea that if you're going to put it on the wall and you're going to get to appreciate it every day, I mean, that would bring me pure joy, right? I mean, it is that. I mean, the Hush piece, it's great, but there's better out there. So
it's tough because it's a splash, and there are only a few splashes from the run, but this one has less of a definition, so you don't really see his outline as much because of the background, and he's not attacking or showing his muscles, as they say, or doing something that shows his athleticism or Batcave. I mean, this is really him being a scientist or him being a detective, and that's great. But again, the action, I think, does lend itself well to the X-Men piece.
Agreed. So I'm curious, how many, we have 12 slides here. Did it take a while for you to pull these together, or were they all very natural for you?
Well, once I got the theme, it did start coming up. I mean, I always, like many collectors, you go and you look at a result, and I like to always say, okay, well, if I had that same amount, would I have bought that piece? And then what I do as a recap, and I'm sure many of others do, is you kind of figure out what you bought or what you bid on. but then you look back at the results and you see some things that you may like better that went for lower prices, and you kind of hit yourself on the head and say, Mike, that I should have gone for that one. And the other side of the coin is, there are some that went above what let's say you bought a piece, but there's something that went for $5,000 more, but you loved it, 5 times more. You kind of say to yourself, I should have gone for that piece, but maybe because of you thought that price was going to continue to escalate, it would be beyond your budget. So that's that. I think coming up with pairs, I think I started with 18 to 20 and then narrowed down to ones that I thought would be fun to talk about tonight. But there's some others, and I tried to make sure I had some DC and some Marvel, and got a couple painted pieces in here. And but no, Bill, it does come natural to look at pieces around the same price level, but it does take a little bit more time to think about. Oh, those are 2 pieces that have some common element, either a character or an artist or a genre that we can intelligently debate and talk about. So,
well, let's take a look at your 4th pair. And
okay, so this is a 4th pair of 2 very beloved artists and respected artists, Perez and Mignola. But you have 2 different types of pieces here. 4A is the official Crisis on Infinite Earths index cover. So this was produced after the series, kind of a compendium, or actually not a compendium. It was a story, expanded story, and talks about different characters, talks about different storylines. But it was at the end after the end of his landmark run. But look at the cover; it has like every key hero that appeared on there. On the Mignola Hellboy, which is again a very, very high demand area, this was one of his earliest. This is the earliest published stories. The Seed of Destruction preceded all the ones that came that he grew into fame with, and so you're getting him right before his run really develops, and he becomes almost synonymous with the Hellboy and the classic Hellboy artist. So. And both are $38,400, which coincidentally is the same price. It's just it's interesting to look at them as one is kind of after the famous run as a compendium index. The other is right before his run starts taking off. But it's an interior page. I can say that that obviously if in any cover from the Crisis on Infinite Earths run would be multiples of this 38,000. And any cover from the Seed of Destruction run would be multiples of this price. So you're kind of getting a way to enjoy the run in a way that is less priced than what could be the top of market or the most premium price pieces from those examples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the audience has definitely put their vote on the Perez piece just because it's so darn iconic, and like you just said, the cost of a cover from Crisis is going to be multiples of the 38,000. The Hellboy piece is nice. It's really early, and I'm sure it's beautiful, but that there you can get other pages out there from the early ones. Not easy, but the Crisis stuff is just so hard to get, and with George no longer with us, I can see why everybody was throwing their vote over towards A. And it's just
that would be my pick as well. I mean, I just think that it presents really well, and yes, you're getting Crisis. It's not necessarily from a cover from the actual run, but it has enough of wall power to kind of make you not so jealous. And 2 of the Crisis covers, by the way, one had the anti-monitor on it, so it had no heroes, or had 2 heroes kind of laying down, but they weren't necessarily really representative images of the run. And you could look at this index cover and say, yeah, well, you got it. This is a great representative image of that series.
Definitely. No, that's a tough one. I'd still, because I have never owned a Hellboy page by Mignola, but I don't think this would be the one I'd go with. There's I'd probably be. I'm in the market for a starter page, but if I had the money, I would buy the Perez too.
Well, so Mignola Hellboys, went through a number of these small arcs, right? So Seed of Destruction was like the first one, but if you had to kind of pick the one that you liked the best and then try to get a page from that run, and if you could be waiting for years for something to come out, right? So that's why when the Seed of Destruction page, this one came out from #1, you could see a lot of the Mignola collectors that were waiting on their page to say, you know what, I think I've got one, but they would have to bid up for that. Historically, I think some of the Seed of Destruction pages were 20,000 to 20 to 24,000, I think. So this one certainly topped it. I think this example here was 16,000 about 6 years ago. So it's appreciated a lot.
Yeah, I saw Rick Welch mention the Falcon in there, and I do have right there.
That's right. And for Falcon, F is full team, so full figure. If it's a team book, you kind of want the whole shebang in there. Oh, there's the Falcon. Yeah, that would be right on the wall. Something to really admire.
Mm-hmm. And had all of those things going for it. Let's see, slide 5. We've got a McSpidey, Anna, John, Byrne.
Yeah, so this is interesting. At 28,800, same dollar value. You really get two different page examples from one of the most coveted runs of the 80s. Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man run, 322, which is later in his run. I think he ends 323, and then Larson takes over after that. And then on the right, you have 143, which is the famous Kitty versus the Alien page, a title, and you get a run. What's interesting to me, and Bill, why I brought these two up, is these are starter pages. I mean, I know it's a loose word, but you have to imagine that a core page with Wolverine and Colossus and Cyclops on the Byrne side, or kind of a Spidey page where you have all of McFarlane's webbing and goodies and battle pages, those would be substantially more. But here you have basically a McSpidey page with him in 2 panels, and it's got a little action in there. And then on the other side, you have Kitty and Storm, but it's an end page from a very, very memorable story. So 2 examples of ones that if you're late getting into those runs and you kind of have to find a page, I mean, these would check the box, but so definitely going to save you some money compared to pages that are primo or have all the characters and elements that collectors desire in these pages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would go with the X-Men page, and not just because it's X-Men and John Byrne and it's his last page from his run on the book, but I missed the whole McFarlane Spidey era, so it doesn't, while it'd be cool to own a page, it just doesn't hold that same kind of nostalgia for me. A great page, and like you said, it's ironic at 28,800. Both of these are kind of starter pages for what they are: Spidey in action, and a McFarlane, Amazing Spider-Man page on the left, and John Byrne X-Men without any action, or characters in costume on the right. And because we know, typically if you get any kind of decent battle scenes or other villains of note in those pages, they're starting at 60,000 and up for both of these titles, right, and artists. So yeah. At the end of the day, they would be good to be owned by anybody who's looking to get a foot in the door.
Yeah, I would take the Byrne page as well. I think the story of 143 was just so memorable for me. I mean, it wasn't the big characters; it was Kitty versus the Alien, but it had a lot of drama. And I think here you have. You have Cyclops written in words, so that for the Cyclops lovers, for Cyclops fans, that's going to be a plus. But no, I just think it's one from that very good story. I think someone brought up the McFarlane. You'd worry about the fading of the inks he was using don't exactly, they're not as dark as you'd like, and therefore there's some fear that they could have some faded inks. And also, I think Byrne X-Men right now. If anyone just goes and says I have a Byrne X-Men page for sale, you'll have 10 people to 20 people just lined up ready to look at it. Whereas McSpidey, people are picky, and you kind of want to write the right page, the right villain, the right issue, etc. So, but I think an interesting comparison of two very high demand runs, examples from that runs where you can get in for under 30,000. And I think both of these pages in 5 years from now, they're going to be going, I should have jumped it when it was that low, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I'm we all feel that way. I mean, you just know you don't know where the market's going to go, but it's
I remember sitting around, it was like 10 years ago. I mean, these Byrne X-Men pages were jumping, or being, dealers were selling them for 4,000 to 7,000.
When I got into the market,
you'd kind of say, and you'd say, no, this is not 10 years. This is like 12 years ago. 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So you'd get like, I would say, I always thought to myself, well, for every 1,000, you should at least get a main character. Like if I'm going to pay 7,000 for a Byrne X-Men page, I got to have at least 7 of them, 7 main characters or villains. And if it's 3 characters,
one character,
now it's like you get one that's like 50,000.
Right. Well, when
it's 10,000 per Wolverine Claw, I think.
All the Byrne X-Men pages I owned, and I think I owned 6, I bought for between 1,500 and maybe like 2,750.
Oh wow!
And that from 2003 to 2005 or 2006. So and got rid of them all, and more than double what I paid, probably only double, but I thought I was doing pretty good. If I only had those now, I could have owned 2 or 3 mini golfs, I think, for the amount of money I could have made from those pieces. But it is what it is, right?
But it is true that if you never see I would be interesting to see if you looked at your cast classified, how many Byrne X-Men pages from the main run have been given there. I think those go straight to auction these days. It's very hard to see those being offered. No. Otherwise, you have 50 people like text you right now, like, which page is it? Can I make you an offer?
So, right, or unless you're going to get an offer at 60 or higher, you might entertain a direct offer at that rate, but even then, you'd probably start thinking that might be worth it putting it in, in a heritage auction anyway, even at that level. But
I thought, was Byrne at OAX?
Was what?
Did Byrne or did I saw a lot of people with some Byrne commissions. I didn't know if they.
Oh no! Well, Byrne wasn't there. He'd be nice to get there though.
Yeah,
maybe in year 2. Well, Jim Warden
Warden had some commissions.
Jim Warden had some Byrne. Yeah, he brought. Well, so again, I didn't get to look at a single portfolio.
Oh, you didn't see anything though.
I talked to Jim before the show, and he actually asked me, "Is it okay if I bring a portfolio of John's work and a few?" I'm like, "Yeah, you don't have to bring Matt Wagner stuff because you're in Matt's booth. I mean, we want you to bring everything." And so yeah, I didn't get to see it. One thing, but the thing was, it was, I know Matt had like one of his best shows of his life. And that's a long career in comics, going to a lot of cons, and he, so the thing was, yeah, I mean, that was pretty cool. So Jim's excited. He's definitely going to come back next year and probably get a booth versus being behind the table. But yeah. Anyway, yes, Jim Warden was set up as Jason mentions.
Oh, terrific. Well, I got to have the Spidey versus Byrne. I thought that was a nice juxtaposition.
And Jason, I did not sell my Byrne X-Men pages to Mike Berkey. I might have bought 1 or 2 from him, but I did not sell them to him. I actually sold most of them to collectors. So, yeah, live and learn. Let's see here. So let's
round
see.
6.
Round 6. We've got the Raymond and the Ross.
Okay, so Alex versus Alex. So 6A is the Alex Raymond page. Sunday, Flash Gordon and the Jungle Jim Topper. And on the right, you have Crisis on Multiple Earths, painted cover by Alex Ross, Superman versus Captain Marvel. They're both 21,600. I think it's a contrast between vintage strip art artist, blue chip artist, versus kind of the modern interpretation of the comics universe, as Alex Ross has been kind of the painted cover artist of the last couple of decades. So what I think was interesting to me is I think this was probably the lowest priced Flash Gordon, Alex Raymond. I think I looked up prices for Heritage full Sundays, and this is on the like the low, like low 5% in terms of the cost. So if you look at the value, you're getting a full Sunday. I think Flash does appear in the middle panel in the bottom tier. So he's in a ship, and you see him and his friend. You only see his head, so that's why it's probably a better priced here on 3A. The Alex Ross, I think this is a very representative price of one of his covers. But you have two big heroes, Captain Marvel and Superman, and with a lot of good background elements. And it's a unique piece. I think a published cover with a lot of. I think it's oversized, twice up size. So just an interesting comparison of two Alexes at 21,600.
Yeah, this is tough for me because you always dream of owning like an Alex Raymond Flash Gordon would be great, but it's not. It's just it doesn't have enough on it because I'm not a big. I mean, I like Alex Ross's work a lot. I've just never been a fan or feel like I need to own anything by him. I like to me, I'd probably own a pencil piece if I could get something from Marvels or whatnot. But yeah, this is definitely a tough one. But I like Mark Levy's comment where he said that if you're over 50, it's 6A, and if you're under 50, it's 6B.
Yeah, Mark's so astute.
What was that? What I miss one?
Yeah, no, that's a great comment by Mark.
It is, right? I mean, it kind of makes sense because I'm 55, so I gravitate. I want to own that one. It's just not, it's there's not a lot there on it other than it is. I remember looking at that piece, in detail. I mean, it's a very well rendered piece. It just doesn't have a lot going for it that's exciting. But yeah, it is what it is.
Well, I'm over 50, and I would actually take the Ross, and I'll tell you why. I think for my, and I don't own a Raymond Flash Gordon, but when I look at what I want in a Raymond Flash Gordon, it's his dry brush strokes. So when I see a Sunday with a lot of white, it kind of is a negative for me. What I want to see are those very intricate dry brushes that he did. I think from 34 to 36 or 7, that's the peak. So those are the ones that I would see. And then the fact that it doesn't show Flash, Dale's in there, and it would be okay if he had, again, the artistic dry brush strokes that I think have made him kind of the artist that everyone inspired so many others. The Ross piece, I just love the fact that it has the DC kind of two big heroes. I like the battle kind of what's going to happen, who's going to win, that type of image, and it's a great cover. But I'm thinking about I guess if I had to choose, I'd probably still take the Raymond. But I do like the Ross piece. I would at this point in my collecting career, I like things that speak to me in terms of what do I like to see, and I just didn't see enough of the Alex Raymond flair in the 6A that I'd want. That would put me over. Otherwise, I would just feel like what a great value. I mean, anything under 25 for a full Sunday is pretty great these days.
Have you owned a few Rosses in your time?
I have a DPS, the Silver Surfer Galactus FF DPS from the Marvels number 3 book, and then I owned a DC cover a few years ago, but I don't own that one anymore. So. But I mean, Alex Ross is I like if you go on YouTube and you see there's a YouTube video on Alex Ross's studio where he shows all the little reference characters that he uses when he paints. It's fascinating. I would highly recommend you looking at that. But he's the cover artist extraordinaire for a reason.
That is for certain. I mean, as long as he wants to make covers, he'll have a job. Cool. I mean, and looking back, the Ross cover was pretty nice. I mean, the composition was fantastic, and I love how he, used the blue to kind of set all the tones for the characters behind the main two. I mean, it was very well done.
When you look at a lot of the Alex Ross covers, you kind of want the intricate detail. There's a lot of him that has one character, but you'll see the detail. Like there's a Captain America one where you see the reflections of all the details in his armor or in his shield. I think that's what makes, to me, Alex Ross a very he's not just a cover artist. What he does is he takes the time to make things very intriguing. So you kind of have to look at over and over again to try to find all the details. And I think that example, if you look at the backgrounds, there's like another 15 characters in there, 5 scenes, almost like a little mosaic of the story. So
Mhm.
very impressive.
All right. So what we got here for 7? We got
Okay.
John
So
Buscema
this,
and Liefeld too.
yeah. So these are 2 artists that you probably don't necessarily see them going head to head. But I've for 20,400, you have 2 pages. Let me walk you through the 2 sides. So on the theme for me are these are 2 examples from runs that are missing the main character, right? So on the left you have the Fantastic Four 120 splash page. It's the I think Gabriel's first appearance, but it's from a series, a storyline arc from 120, end of 120, all the way through 123, which is the Galactus Silver Surfer, huge nostalgia run. But there's no Surfer, no Galactus. You do have Fantastic Four on the bottom, but you really, if it had Surfer in there, page of this, a splash of this quality, it would be 80, 40,000, 50,000, if not more. So on the right, this is New Mutants 98, which is of course the first appearance of Deadpool. Deadpool's not on this page. He appears in 6 pages of the issue, but this is one that starts setting up the story where he makes his appearance. But you're getting Buscema, Fantastic Four, Liefeld, New Mutants. So great, artist title combo, but you're missing the main attraction for the run, and certainly ones that could add not only a 5x but possibly 10x to the value, depending on which page it is. Missing Server and Deadpool, respectively.
Yeah, I of course like the FF page a lot, even though it's it's not dramatic. It is a nice splash page, but I saw several people mention in the chat that the Liefeld would be one to own because that there are a lot of buyers out for it, and probably even at this $20,000 level on this page, you could hold on to it for a few months and probably find someone willing to offer you more than that without even taking it to auction. So I get it. I understand that approach to a piece like that, because pages from that book are in high demand, and you, I jokingly said Andy drew feet on this page too, but yeah, no, it'd be tough for me. I'd still the issue. The storyline from FF though is so memorable that for me, I'd still probably pick the page on the left. It wouldn't be a page that I'd want to keep forever, but it would be a page that I'd love to own and say I had it in my collection for a while.
Well, if you pick 7B, you want to be the last page before somebody eventually completes the book. So someone in the future, another George Lucas or someone, will complete all of it but your page, and you basically can say, here's my price for that final page. That would be the dream scenario. I'm not a first appearance collector, so the value of a page from the first appearance of Deadpool doesn't hold as much value with me as it does with a lot of collectors that were in that first appearance. I do the whole Buscema FF run, 120, 121, 122, 23. Those are just so memorable to me, and I'd probably I'd just love to have any pages from that story arc. So I'd go with 7A for me.
There you go. We are in agreement on that. It's just looking at it. I don't care that he doesn't have knees, Jason. Jason saying
he doesn't have knees.
Forgot to draw the
Gideon.
Yeah. I guess you could almost say that. It's more Sinet's fault for not inking them in, right? You never know.
I always have this dream, Bill, and I know it's a crazy one, but you get someone buys this page on 7B, and then Rob comes out saying, you know what, I actually had Deadpool hidden in the back, and you can see the little tuft of his hand coming out from underneath something, and you end up having his first appearance page just by chance. It's kind of like getting your commission published as a cover, but but almost more of a lottery situation. But I've always thought that would have been a really funny situation if the artist had put an Easter egg where one of his key characters, was in a poster or kind of hang out behind, in the kitchen. You can see his leg, and he can say that's actually Deadpool's leg, because that one of his pages, I think page 11, it shows his fist hitting Cable.
Okay.
And that's technically his first appearance. It's just on the bottom right panel. It's the end of the page. It's his fist, but it's not a full Deadpool, but that's his.
Right. You could say though that was his first appearance.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Well, I don't think we've heard that happen yet in our hobby, but it could happen. There's still plenty of time for that to happen. And the way so many artists have fun in modern comics, it wouldn't surprise me if something like that were to come up at some point down the road.
I actually did. I'll admit it, because I'm never going to do it now. So
okay,
I was going to put up for one of your April Fools. I always do, by the way. If you look back, I did some joke April Fools ones. I put up a kind of a comedy page or something. But I was going to put up a page from like Hulk 180 or 179, and I was going to show some random scene. But then I'll show some Wolverine claw coming out from behind the bush. And I'll ask does anyone know anything about this? I was just reading through this book, and I noticed there's a clawed hand coming out from this tree, and I'm wondering, who is that? That would have been an April Fool's joke for me. But
well, now we're all going to be paying attention to your calf gallery on April 1st. So you better come up with something good.
That's right. I will. I like that.
Let's see here. So moving over.
But that seemed like the comments are split. Like
it was kind of split.
Depending on the runs you like.
Yeah.
That may be an over 50 or under 50 thing too.
It could be. Yeah.
We'll call it the Levy rule. So this is pair 8. This is for $6,600. You have the choice of 2 Avengers pages, one from the 60s and one from the 2000. On the left, you have John Buscema again with Vince Coletta, Avengers 44, but you have a great top panel with Cap and with Hercules and Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye, and I think that's the money page. And then you have a bottom right, the bottom panel on the right, you have Captain America. Twice up page, by the way. This is an era from 28 through, I think, 59, Yellow Jacket, that introduced a whole bunch of different characters, and the teams were mixing up, and it was just a very dynamic era for the Avengers. And on the right, you have Sean Chen, Scott Hanna, a very accomplished inker. It's an Avengers Infinity one cover, so it was Avengers, but they borrowed the Infinity theme when it got really popular. And you have Hulk with his hammer, and you have a bunch of characters really coming at you in a very dynamic cover image. But for $6,600, different tastes. What would you pick though? What do you think of these? I
would probably go with A on this one, in part because the other piece being more modern. I think I could probably, I'm a young enough collector that over the next 20 years, I could probably get this cover again at another time or something comparable. But I kind of like, there's a lot of things I like in the first page. I even like the the kind of the third panel. I don't know what's going on in there, but it's kind of like it's just, there's just a lot of fun stuff in there.
That is cool.
The first panel is just fantastic.
That is amazing.
With the whole team in there. It's only missing Thor, right? But other than that, it's a great page. I mean, I love it, and it's an end page too, which is always fun. So I think that adds a level of value to it too. I mean, I know it's a silly thing, but I think end pages are cool. So yeah, that would be my approach to it. I feel like you could get those dramatic images like the Avengers Infinity cover. We see these kind of all the time, right? I mean, they're you could say it's a Nick Bradshaw cover, or it's another Sean Chen, or it's a Jim Lee cover. We see these kind of powerful team images that don't carry a lot of story a lot, and I think I could own one of these. Art Adams draws these every other week, so I think it's a great image, but I'd go with the one that's more historic. I do like the page on the left more.
Yeah, I would choose the Avengers 44 page as well. I do think it's good to call out that back in the 60s, artists didn't necessarily try to produce kind of the money panel or panels that would just help them sell their art, right? It was all about kind of creating the storyline. So when you do have a golden panel like that with multiple characters in there and ones that you can see them all, and that's pretty rare. If you read through kind of these twice up pages, you're lucky if you find two or three really good characters in the same panel, and the page is meant to be a storyline. So when you have a page like this with a panel like that, I mean, there's some pretty neat art value in that for me. Whereas in the modern age, I feel like artists do understand what it means to have a full impact, dynamic, action-oriented cover or splash, and I think those have become almost commonplace, right? So any artist who's not doing that, you almost criticize them for being too stale or too uncinematic, if that's a word. That they have to go right now for the bold and the powerful and the power lines and the Thor has to always be kind of coming at you. That's a big theme. But in the 60s it wasn't like that. It was very the story was the main thing. Yeah. So
yeah, we talk about that a lot, with modern comics and this kind of movie poster approach to them, and I think we all movie posters are pretty boring. Kezra and I were talking the other day about that same topic, and we were looking at like the Mondo when they redo a poster, or these these second generation cover or posters that get made for movies are almost always better than the ones that the major production companies are putting out there for their films, and because they tell stories and they're more dynamic, and maybe they get a few more avant-garde artists to take approaches at that. And maybe that's why we need so many variants to kind of at least kind of hit all the right places on covers anymore. But yeah, I would, again, it's that I would go with the Avengers page all day long.
Well, something to think about. We were just talking about conventions, and I have noticed that a lot of the dealer walls will almost hesitate to put up twice up interior pages, even from the 60s. It's easier for them to put the Sean Chen one, the cover, because it has more eye appeal from 20 feet, right? So when you go to a convention, you go to Bashar's booth, or you go to Berkey's. I mean, they're all in these folders, and you have to flip through them, and trying to find one that you like is a little harder. But what that means is I think there's some hidden value there, because you'll find a page, like if you came up on this one in a folder, you'd say, wow, that's pretty interesting, good top panel, and it doesn't necessarily have the airplay or visibility that a cover, a Sean Chen, that cover would probably be on the dealer wall, where people would be coming by, seeing it all the time, looking at the price, going, do I want to pay that much or not? Whereas those twice up Marvel pages from the 60s are sitting in portfolios that aren't necessarily right in front of you because they're so big. And so that's something that I've always thought, well, okay, well, if you take the time to look through those portfolios and you're in the market for those, you can find, some, good value in picking those up. So.
That's true. I mean, I can think of, Mike's the easy one to think about. I mean, when he's going to be putting twice up pieces on the wall, they're pretty much only going to be covers.
And they're all on the top. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. And you're not going to see interiors on the wall at all unless it's incredibly special. I mean, if he had a Ditko, it'd probably be up there. But outside of that, would he ever do that? I don't think so. I mean, and you're right. There's cumbersome, issues of putting those kind of pages up there, but you got to work to find those twice ups inside of a portfolio. Yeah, that does make sense. But again, I think that's a fantastic page.
Yeah.
Let's see. James says, what is True Cool Lines did that with tons of covers at OAX, so putting the ones that have a lot more eye appeal on the wall. Yeah,
because if you're walking by, you're looking at things from 15 feet. And before you kind of look in, you kind of want things that have very quick eye appeal on the wall. So
it makes perfect sense here. So we're going to take a look at pairing number 9 next.
9. So here are 2 calendar pieces. One DC on the left, the Dick Giordano 1978 calendar. I think it's Batman. Good scene from what I thought was Times Square, but it's actually just a city scene for 7800. And on the right, you have Klaus Janson a Marvel Universe 1997 calendar with Daredevil and Punisher and Elektra, I believe, and some other heroes there, and again another city scene. I think both of them are comparable size. They're about 11 by 16, so a little bit above, larger than a standard page. In fact, I think this may be larger than that because that's the image area. Well, what I thought was interesting is Dick Giordano was very well known as the inker for Neil Adams on a lot of Batman titles or books. And then Klaus Janson, of course, was Miller's inker on the Daredevil run. So here you have the famous inker providing a penciled calendar illustration. And the prices were a bit different. They were like the $7,800 for the DC on the 9A and close to $5,800 for the Marvel 9B. But calendar pieces are one of those unique things that I think you get to create an image that doesn't necessarily come from a storyline, but you can get a representative thing that can really have some tremendous eye appeal. So, Bill, what do you think about these two?
I don't really like the Jansen piece. Something doesn't feel. I mean, I know it's a calendar piece, so it's already a composition that's not something we're used to seeing. Even like on a DPS, it's compressed, right? But there's something about it that just doesn't interest me. But the Giordano piece is fantastic. I mean, I love I love the composition. The lighting throughout it is really, really well done. And I mean, and the Batman is like in a classic Neil Adams pose right there. And so there's just so much to love about it. And it's period, right? I mean, it's 78. So that's, it's Gotham 78, but it might as well be a New York City street in 1978. And that's, I don't know. There's a lot to love in that artwork. There's so much detail in that city, whereas the buildings on the left, it's just a generic skyscraper. So again, it's back to when I'm thinking about the art and the composition and what really appeals to me. The Batman piece wins hands down.
I agree. I would go with the Giordano piece as well. The Arrow was very important to me. So this was about the time in the 70s, 71 through 79, that Giordano was inking Adams. So there was a lot of continuity excuse the pun, continuity. There was a lot of consistency in the way he was inking, that when he did his penciled calendar piece, you see a lot of the same look of that Adams-esque art style. Whereas Janson, of course, was a major contributor to the Miller-Janson run, but this was 1997, so another 15 years after the peak of the run, or 10 to 15 years after the peak of the run. And I think this has much more of a Klaus Janson dominant style. You don't see much of the Miller in here, although the characters are nice. If you want the character inclusion, this is clearly Janson's art style that he brought to a lot of the. I mean, I remember seeing a lot of his later 1990s stuff, and a lot of exaggerated look. And so I do agree. I like the Batman piece. It came from the 70s. It was just when Giordano was at his peak. Inking Adams, and now taking a chance, taking the opportunity to pencil and ink this piece.
Yeah, I like all the comments. Even what was it when Knights of Old said the building's the coolest part of the Janson piece? So it's again, art is subjective, everybody, and that's the wonderful thing about it. Something I don't like about it, you may. I mean, I think it's. I don't know. That's one of the great things about our hobby. There is art for everyone, and that's a good thing.
And I would think. I mean, I agree. The perspective on the 9B piece, from the floor looking up at the, you would never see that in the 70s. I mean, the 70s it was always more kind of a panoramic view on the same eye level. Whereas I think in the 90s and 2000s, certainly artists can be more daring and bold with their perspective, and almost it was a way to distinguish their art by saying, hey, look, I can draw from this angle that no one else has looked at. So I thought that was a pretty bold perspective for Klaus to bring. But I also, on the Batman piece, so it seemed like he was all in white, like he was the Dark Knight, but because of the lighting, he was he had a lot. It's almost like he's dressed in white, almost like Moon Knight, right? Which I thought was just brilliant. I love the imagery there.
I didn't really even notice that, but you're right. I mean, because they could have done the cape all in black and left him.
Yeah, but they did it in white. So he's coming out of the light and he's kicking some, you know what?
Yeah, no, I'm still going with the Giordano here. Now next, this is an interesting pairing because you do have Frank Miller and then John Bogdanove here on this one. So
yeah, so pair 10. Actually, the theme here. Not only are they great artists, but it's the sinister smile, right? So you have on the left, Sin City. A promotional illustration. So this is one that right, that was to advance the series, where Frank Miller is in his classic noir style, that he's drawing. What's his name? Dwight with the gun, I guess. But he's doing the smile, and on the right you have John Bogdanove, who did I think 25 of the Superman Man of Steel covers. But this is the one that Kal-El comes back. So after the death, and he comes back, and that's his image. That's the first time you see him, and he's doing the kind of gritty smile that you see juxtaposed with the Miller. A cover on one side, promotional illustration on the other, but both for $38,400.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, what is it? You have this.
So 43 for one and 38. So around 40,000 for each. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with the Miller on this one, just because I have no connection to the image on the right. But and again, it's back to, I mean, you're not going to own artwork by him from that period too easily. But I still think, the Miller Sin City stuff, the Primo stuff is just going up and up and up. I mean, there's so many fans of his work. Mitch does a drop like once every other month with a couple of new pieces, and they always sell pretty quickly. And again, I've always wanted to get a Sin City piece that had some punch to it. So I really like the image on the left.
Yeah, I'd love the Sin City one as well. That's also oversized. I think the Reign of Superman, Man of Steel, there's been about a dozen or so covers that have come out, and another 3 that were in this auction. They were going, I think average was somewhere around between 20 and 18 to 25, I think. So this one was really, there's 2 that came above 30,000. One was a full figure of Superman in his John Steele pose, and then this one, which is just his face. But I think the reason why this one went high for that artist, the cover values, is because it was the one that introduced Kal-El back into the fold. So there was some sentimental story that this is the one that he comes back. So everyone remembers. I remember this the face cover almost like it was still on the rack. But it's good to see. I think John Bogdanove had owned all these covers, and he's letting them go, which is wonderful to let them get into the hobby. And I think you're seeing now some real appreciation for those that run. But I'd probably for the money, it would be Sin City for me.
There you go. And I mean, John's done incredibly well with those, releasing those auctions like he has. I don't know if he's putting kids through school or what, but he's set for a while, and I think that's incredible for him to have been able to hold on to the artwork for that length of time.
And what's interesting is, he's also released a number of Power Pack covers. So those are Marvel versus DC, and I think it's 5x or 10x on the Superman. Obviously, Superman's a bigger series, but you have Marvel Power Pack and versus Superman, and the value differential between the two is enormous. I mean, it could be 6,000 on one and 35,000 on the other, which just shows you if he's lucky he kept both, but he's really lucky that he kept the Superman of Steel ones.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, my Power Pack is like Maureen and the kids probably like favorite team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we've got I have a fair number of interiors, but we've always looked at the the covers when they come up. But did you we don't have to tell me, but did you pick up
Yeah,
anything at the last signature auction?
I did. I picked up the Spectacular Spider-Man Black Spidey costume cover with Daredevil and Black Cat.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That's a good
I
one.
bid for a couple of others. I mean, I had a I would love to have bought, and one of the ones that are coming up, the Hawkman 3 cover was a twice up Murphy Anderson one that I had my eye on. I was actually in the process. I know he's probably in the chat, so I was in the process of selling a piece, and I was trying to say, if you're going to commit to buying it, I'm going to go after that Hawkman, but I didn't get that wrapped up until after the platinum session ended. So, and I gave chops to the buyer. I said, look, you should have told me a day ago, and I would have been able to put that in. But no, I'm happy with that. I chased 3 pieces. The other, I can't remember what the other, but I had a lot of stuff I was interested in watching, but not
Mhm.
really targeting.
Okay.
I did look at both the black costume Spectacular Spider-Man covers. The one I got was the Milgram one, had full figure Black Spidey, and then Daredevil and Black Cat. I needed to get one. I never had one, and I wanted to add one to the collection, and that seemed well priced to me. So.
All right. Well, I think the Hawkman cover is next.
Yeah, so this 11 pair, here are too deep for the DC fans with 36,000 to put in. Here's 2 really good choices. I don't think you can go wrong with each. One is a twice up 11A is the Murphy Anderson Hawkman 3 cover. You know, Hawkman, Hawkgirl in great form. Twice up on the left, and 11B is Mike Sikowski from his JLA 29, which of course was the around the time when 21 introduced the JLA JSA team, and then I guess this is just a wonderful splash with a roll call motif where you're showing all the characters, and I think it's a wonderful piece. I can say that I mean, in my mind, both were great values. I see the Hawkman twice up covers. I think Anthony Snyder has one at 60,000, number 8, and the Justice League Splash, that's bigger than twice up. That actually sold for almost $50,000 a year and a half ago in 21. So I was interested to see how that fared. I think both of them at 36,000 were great value. So Bill, choice?
My choice would be
think?
I would go with the Sikowski. I mean, there's a lot to like in the Hawkman cover, but I like the history in the second piece. I mean, I know it's just a roll call kind of title page, but still it's cool. I mean, it's and it's all art, and there's a lot to love in something like that. I mean, those are things that that's while I again wasn't reading DC. I mean, comics did that so much in the in the 70s, introducing a book and roll calling the characters sometimes on the covers or whatnot. I mean, it's fun to see something like that. Yeah, so I really like the second piece. The JLA is really
I'd go with 11B too. I think I think Hawkman's a great character, but the fact that you can show something with so many identifiable DC heroes, it makes that a very special piece. I also think about I bring a lot of folks to my house that I show them art, and they're not necessarily art, much less comic fans, right? So if you can show this and you say, well, it's Justice League, and you know these guys, Flash, Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, that would receive a lot of nods as saying that is a classic piece. They're both 1964, so you're still talking, very early. These are both preceding the Ditko Spidey page that we did in the first pair. So the age is there, but I think while I had Hawkman 3 as one of my targets. If I had to choose between the 2 at this price, I'd love to take home that JLA splash. I think that's just phenomenal.
Agreed. Well, Alberto's commenting on DC pages too. That's great.
Oh, Alberto, that's a change.
Let's see. So we only have one slide left here. This is number 12.
So this is 12, this is pair John Byrne, Captain America on the left, splash page from 2 to 54. And on the right, a splash page by the King, Jack Kirby, Mr. Miracle. Both of them seem to have the hero column in either frozen on one side and tied up on the other. So they're in statue. They can't move. But I think, again, Byrne and Kirby are two very admired, talented artists, and both full figure, dominating the splash respectively, and both for $31,200. Bill?
Well, I see Alberto picked 12A, so that's no surprise. And same with number one Marvel fan. This is a tough one for me. I mean, I obviously, being a Marvel fan myself, that storyline from Captain America was just fantastic, and I'm torn. It's an era of Byrne's work that I really I love it. I love his style during this period, but the Kirby piece is pretty impressive as well. So I'm really kind of in the middle on this one because they're both title pages. There's a lot to love in both these, so I'm actually torn because I'm not I'm not. It's not a nostalgic pick for me to go with the Cap, because I think I'd much rather see Cap in action, rather than being pretty much out of commission here with that one. But the Mr. Miracle is exactly, he's always in a challenging situation like that. So it's like the character's in the exact place where you'd want him, so I don't know. I think I'd probably lean a bit for towards the Kirby on this one.
This is tough for me too. I mean, you can't go wrong with either one. I'd go with the Cap just because of the image is strong for me, with a really great inking on it. The Mr. Miracle one is actually rarer. If you look at, and I don't know the Mr. Miracle splash, but I've seen only one in 6 years, and the one that came up in Comic Link about a year ago was Mr. Miracle tied up on the railroad track, and it wasn't a really good image of him because you only saw half of him, and he's tied up, and you see basically the train coming. But the Mr. Miracle splash here, I can't imagine there's a better Mr. Miracle splash besides the number one splash. So that is really a top-notch one. But again, tough one to choose. I do like the Cap as it's a full figure, great inking on it, and even though he's not in action and it doesn't show his shield, I think I just like the Cap. I just like the image, and
oh yeah, I mean,
I'll live with the fact that he's not punching out somebody. But
I get it. And I wouldn't have any issue with owning the Cap page too.
Plus, I could just go to Alberto and just mark it up and have an instant buyer.
Poor Alberto, man. You will.
He was telling me, and I don't want to speak for him because I didn't get to recap with him after the show, but he was in some chat and he's like, it's good to be the Cap guy. Like, people were coming up to him and saying, Alberto, come here. I saw a Cap piece over by this booth. You got it. And then 5 minutes later, someone say, Alberto, did you see the splash that so and so? I mean, it's like, it's good to be the Cap King. He might as well have a throne and kind of people just walking across and going, this one is 7,000, and you can, yeah.
Well, he's got an army of people looking out for him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I get, whenever there's a Willingham piece out there, so everybody's contacting me, letting me know it's there.
Well, in the April auction, the April Heritage, there's 2 elemental covers. Or is it in the Comic Link? I think it's Comic Link. There's 2 elemental covers, Willingham.
Well, I've missed that. Nobody's contacted me about that.
No, I'll let you know now. One of them has 5 characters walking around, kind of the Abbey Road Beatles, kind of in form.
I think I know which cover that is.
Yeah, that's kind of a neat one. That would be my pick. But anyway, we could all do punish bids for Bill. So
I'm actually, obviously, I'm like loaded up another browser here. I'm going to be checking it out when everything's done.
Okay, but I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I thought this was a unique way, particularly if I'm going to have to do this solo with Bill and not have the whole cadre with great debate as we normally do on pieces. I think this is a way to kind of introduce a new dimension to how we evaluate prices and lots from the previous auction, and it's kind of informative. I kind of took some creativity and trying to find some commonality between two pieces that have sold at the same price. And you can see, as from examples that we showed, there's some good relative attractiveness for people depending on their desire for pieces or collectability of characters or artists. So
you're getting a lot of thumbs up on it. I mean, I agree. It was
thank you.
very, yeah. It's a break for. We've been doing the other format for 4 years now. I mean, it's been a long time. I mean, one of the earlier shows we ever did was a heritage recap. It's changed a bit since then, but still, it's you know, it can get a bit dry. So I know this was fun. It was a great approach.
Well, just to be transparent, we knew that Bill coming back from OAX the Monday after, he could be, you know, he could be sleeping for the next 48 hours, and we're not going to blame him. So this format would allow me to kind of jump on this and kind of have a conversation with everyone alone, which would be a way to save Bill some time. But glad we're able to kind of get together.
There's no bickering over anything here, or Albert yelling next or anything. But honestly, I mean, it was kind of fun. I wouldn't mind throwing a few of those in, even if we have a kind of a group format for the next one, just because, I mean, it kind of breaks up the monotony of what we're looking at. I mean, I think I would give you, if you wanted to introduce that into the next one too, I'd be open to it. And if you weren't, I might try it, just because I like that. I think it was great.
And I think for all collectors, if you look at the auction results of any auction, Heritage, Comic Link, Comic Connect, and you kind of sort by price, as you work your way and look through the various levels of cost, you can actually see pieces that jump out at you and go, oh, this shouldn't be at this $20,000 tier. It belongs higher. And it's an interesting way to look at relative pricing as a way to examine, you know, the way markets are behaving, how the way comic art is performing in auction. So
I agree.
I enjoyed it.
As did I, and I think everybody in the chat did too. So we're gonna end it early tonight, guys, and only an hour and 20 minutes or so. I mean, but Dino, thank you for doing this. I mean, I really appreciate it. It's always
fun. It's always fun to get on and talk things. And thanks for the opportunity to jump on screen and chat with everyone. And I know everyone's tired, and I'm so jealous of all you guys that got to make OAX. So this is my way of kind of maybe giving you a shorter show so that you can look back at an auction, but also get some rest and get ready for, I think, another just great year of art collecting.
Indeed. And there's just, I'm sure there's another signature auction right around the corner. I don't know what the date is. Is it late February? I think it must
April
be.
15th.
Oh, it's April. Wow. That's, they're taking a break. Is that
a lot of good targets there? No, actually, I take that. It's April 15th. It's the signature. There's a March 15th for the international one.
International
one, which has a lot of actually some U.S. art in there. I think there's a Daredevil. I'm leaking all my targets, but there's a Daredevil Romita Jr. cover there. It's pretty nice. And Comic Link is 3/14 as well. So that same weekend's going to go head to head with the international auction. For their featured auction. So we are not short of opportunities to see auctions happen in our hobby. So
no, not at all.
That'll be exciting to watch.
All right.
You like my background? I kind of did my room and
I did. You're not in your usual, white, clean, office. You're in. You're. It's almost like the playroom, except that you've got one.
It is a
spread back there.
Yeah, no, it's a virtual background, of course, but I just want something to be fun.
No,
I figured you have always those interesting stuff in your background, so on.
Trying. Maureen's going to give it a makeover sometime in the next few weeks, though. So we're going to have we're going to get things mixed up around here, I think. But all right, everybody. Well, we appreciate you tuning in tonight so much.
Thank you so much.
Tomorrow night is the Best of Awards presentation. Starts at 9. Everybody, I'm sure, is very curious to hear what the results were. I have not looked myself yet, although we've been pulling the videos together because Ashton puts the loops together that announce the winners. So he actually knows who they all are. I haven't looked yet, but yeah, it's going to be a good time.
You see Ernst and Young. When the Oscars happen and Ernst and Young kind of hands in the envelopes to the announcer, that's Ashton has
I'm
Oh, yeah.
dropping everything
Oh,
now.
well, yeah, that's we have
Almost
one
finished
less
here, the
trophy now.
trophy. Yes, I've got well, I'll show everybody tomorrow, but we got the new trophy. It's still got a hammer, but it's got a lightning bolt on it now, and it's on a cloud. So something different
Oh,
for the third time we're handing these out.
oh, that'll
How
be
many?
exciting to see. And
Yep.
are you wearing? You're wearing a jacket for that?
I'm gonna wear a jacket. Yeah, well, I have to because
Good
Mikhail
for you,
always wears
Bill.
a jacket. I gotta keep up with him. I might even wear a
Oh,
bow tie
that's
tomorrow.
right.
You never know. But yeah,
That's
all right. Well,
awesome.
tune in tomorrow night, everybody. It's gonna be a lot of
All
fun.
right.
James Siegel will join us too because we have the sketchbook voting that he did all last year. We're gonna pick the top piece from all the
A
sketchbooks.
winner. That's right.
Yeah,
Good.
exactly. So it's gonna be a fun night. So have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you again